Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 380, Your Victory Over Non-Conformance, Part 2. How conformance reverses the damage of non-conformance within your mind. The podcast objectives are analyze how we purge ourselves from all lawlessness, reveal how we are successful in spiritual warfare, and analyze your battles with non-conformance. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. To walk into a fiery furnace. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 157 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we analyzed the crucial role that trust plays in your battles with the spiritual virus of nonconformance. We concluded that podcast revealing how walking in conformance will often feel like walking into a fiery furnace, which is why your battles with nonconformance will not be easy. Trust me, no one in their right mind is seeking to walk into a fiery furnace. Even the true contenders for the seal of Elohim, we're not looking to walk into a fiery furnace or for a fiery trial to take on. Quite the contrary, we are seeking the Father's will. And yet, if it is his will for us to walk into a fiery furnace, we will be ready for it and we will overcome. This is not the case for those who have been infected with the spiritual virus of nonconformance to the point where they have acquired spiritual strongholds. Remember, these individuals are being plagued with fear and a host of other deadly emotions. Alas, these emotions will drive them away from the fiery trials associated with this quest, preventing them from walking in the ways of conformance. Here lies a great irony, which I will offer as an inflection point. The only safe space in any sphere of existence is the Father's will. This is true, even though his will is decorated with fiery tests and trials, which, from a physical perspective, don't feel safe at all. Now, the reason behind this paradox is sure. Vis-a-vis, the only way to insulate ourselves from all the evil in this world is by overcoming the evil and eliminating any of its derivatives from our beings. And the only way this will transpire is if we succeed our tests and trials. On this wise, you should view your tests and trials as battles with the forces of evil. To wit, the degree of lawlessness that is currently blocking your path, preventing you from progressing the Father's goodwill in your life. Here again, this is why they are fiery. My dear friends, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to purge out every degree of lawlessness from your life. And the only way to purge yourself from all these matters is by fire. 1 Peter 1:3-9 is revealing, blessed be the Elohim and Father of our Master Yahushua Messiah, who, according to his great compassion, has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Yahushua Messiah from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled and unfading, having been kept in the heavens for you, who are protected by the power of Elohim through faith for a deliverance ready to be revealed in the last time, in which you exult, even though for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by manifold trials, in order that the proving of your faith, much more precious than gold that perishes and tried by fire, might be found to result in praise and respect and esteem at the revelation of Yahushua Messiah, whom having not seen, you love, in whom you exult with unspeakable and esteemed joy, yet not seeing, but believing, obtaining the goal of your faith, the salvation of your souls. How to succeed in spiritual war. Now, in line with this passage, we understand that the trials we endure are designed to prove a critical matter. That is, whether or not we have fulfilled the Father's will, which is time-based. To wit, Yahuwah expects us to make a certain amount of progress in our spiritual development over a predefined period of time. And this is in line with the parable of the talents. Here lies the inflection. Vis-a-vis, your mastery of the Father's will is not limited to you knowing what his will is for your life. Quite the contrary, there are many factors involved, including time. Consider this. The focal purpose of the Father's will is to empower you to eliminate every degree of lawlessness in your life at a pace that reflects the spiritual gifts, talents, etc. Yahuwah has afforded you. For example, if non-conformance is the degree of lawlessness you are working to eliminate in your life, the Father will provide you with ample time to master the degree of conformance. And if you are being led by the Spirit, you will unlock the power of conformance in accordance with the time factor of the Father's will. And you will be victorious in your battles with non-conformance. You, my friend, will succeed the fiery tests and trials required for you to reign over this spiritual virus. And this, my friends, is how it's supposed to be. But alas, more often than not, this is not how things go down. For many, regardless of the degree of lawlessness they are working to eliminate. Here is why. The majority of men and women are not being led by the Spirit, and thus, when they should have been engaged in their spiritual trade, exercising the spiritual tools made available to them, they were to some degree complacent. Here lies the problem. Vis-a-vis, while they were complacent, they were yet drawing near to the next series of tests and trials in their quest. Here lies another key inflection we have discussed in prior podcasts, which you must always remember. Your quest for holiness is synchronized. Vis-a-vis, it is aligned to your projected growth, which again reflects all the spiritual gifts, tools, etc. the Father has given you. And thus, your tests and trials will occur according to the Father's schedule, whether you are ready for them or not. Again, here lies the problem. Vis-a-vis, because many presume their quest is aligned with their actual growth as opposed to their projected growth, they are consistently unprepared for their tests and trials. And as it so happens, this is the primary reason why so many are unsuccessful in spiritual warfare. It is also why they are being hampered by the various infections and strains of lawlessness. It is because they're going into their battles unprepared, even though they have been equipped for it. They have been dressed for success, and yet they will not succeed. This is why I am a huge proponent of spiritual mastery, exercise, and practice, to wit, the 7 pillars of our faith. It is because these are critical facets of our ability to become proficient with our weapons of warfare. Listen to me. If we do not become proficient with these weapons, we are setting ourselves up to be defeated in every battle. Here lies a key inflection which reveals the following truism, and this is one I'd advise you to bookmark. The outcome of every spiritual battle is determined before the battle ever begins. This should not be too difficult to see, for the only way we can win any battle is by being prepared for it. Ergo, if you have not prepared yourself, there is no way you will ever win. The battle for you will be over before it ever begins. Your battles with non-conformance. Now, as you may have gathered, the focal key to succeeding your tests and trials is conformance. Ergo, the inverse is also true. Non-conformance is the primary deterrent to your success in spiritual warfare. Here is why. Whereas conformance causes us to follow every rule of holiness, non-conformance causes us to neglect these rules because we are more interested in following our own path than we are inclined to follow the way of holiness. Brothers and sisters, this is precisely why the primary illustration of conformance in our quest is a railing system. It's because the rules of holiness are the substance of the way of holiness, and the railing system is structured to help us follow the rules. Not only this, but the railing system insulates us from the kingdom of darkness. This is why no weapon formed against us will prosper, as long as we are in the way of holiness and daily walking in conformance. Brilliantly, this is how conformance defeats non-conformance. To wit, by establishing a railing system around the periphery of the way of holiness, it becomes impossible for any true contender to follow any other path. We know this because non-conformance is designed to compromise the execution zone of your spiritual mind. In effect, non-conformance replaced the Father's will and his vision with a self-will and a carnal vision corrupted by disobedience and doubt. Notwithstanding, conformance reverses this corruption by reestablishing the Father's will and his vision as the baseline of your execution zone. But he doesn't stop there. Remember, after every victory you obtain over the 80 degrees of lawlessness, the Spirit of Elohim will put a safeguard in place to best position you to reign over the degree of lawlessness you have just defeated. Along these lines, the safeguard established by conformance is the railing system. In amazing fashion, the railing system circumferences your execution zone, making it impossible for you to execute contrary to the Father's will. as long as you continue. Now, you can see this by observing the image to the right. Your execution zone has now been renewed by conformance, and your spiritual mind is now made whole. Not only this, but the entire thought dimension is, for the first time ever, completely aligned with the Father's will. To wit, every division is insulated by the degrees of faith and obedience. Here lies one more testament to the line upon line, precept upon precept nature of holiness. Vis-a-vis, there would be no purpose for instituting the railway of holiness to keep our minds aligned with the Father's will if any of these divisions yet retained shades of lawlessness. Not only would there be no purpose, this would not even be a lawful spiritual maneuver. Thus, seeing as this is an operation the Spirit would never endorse, we can draw the following conclusion. Once you unlock the power of conformance and establish the railway of holiness, your thought dimension will possess all the safeguards it needs to carry you through your conquest of power. For that reason, your mind will now be prepared to experience the most powerful, comprehensive spiritual process known to man. Enter transformation, the critical degree of obedience, the spiritual process that will put the nail in the coffins of disobedience, and the topic of our next podcast. Now, here is the final word. To succeed any battle, you must know you'll never win if you don't grow. Brothers and sisters, this is one of the more underestimated features of conformance. Vis-a-vis, it is the focal ingredient of all spiritual growth. To wit, we grow in the Spirit as we conform to the Father's will. The same goes for the natural. We label individuals as mature when they follow the rules governing the institutions within our societies. And there are consequences for non-conformance. And although none of these are even close to the penalty of endless death, there is a parallel between spiritual and physical maturity, and thus we are compelled to grow. And we will. All we have to do is stay within the boundaries of the railing system of conformance and give ourselves to following all the rules. For everyone breaking through the railway of holiness is a transgressor, and this is why hell hath enlarged itself, and why the lake of fire will be full. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today, and as always, ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. For the children of Elohim live by conviction, and if he has not convicted you, or if you had not heard him concerning these matters, you should pray until you do. Today, I want you to meditate on your personal battle with non-conformance. And if you are having any struggles at all, don't try to go it alone. Remember, time is of the essence, always of the essence. Along these lines, most of you who are still with us are not starting from scratch in any of your battles with lawlessness. Quite the contrary, you are here to finish the job you have already started. You are here to go on to perfection as the scriptures have commanded. And you are here because Yahuwah has called you to be on this quest with us. And very soon, we will initiate our battles with complacency. And so, it is very important that you defeat nonconformance, if at all possible, as soon as possible. And if you need any help at all, don't hesitate to reach out to a spiritual leader or advisor as you are led by the Spirit. Remember, this is the work of the ministry. This is the edification of the assembly of righteousness. So reach out and be edified. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 380, Your Victory Over Nonconformance, Part 2. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 381, An Intro to Transformation, Part 1. I will post this podcast on Friday, December 6th, 2024. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.